Hi, I'm Monica Novo. Welcome to Canvas, a podcast where every episode is a fresh canvas. We dive into stories that make you pause, conversations that open your perspective, and the ideas influencing art, lifestyle, entertainment, architecture, and the way we connect as humans. Together, we look beyond the surface into the moments, the places, and the people quietly shaping how the world moves and why we keep evolving. Some people follow a path. Others rewrite it entirely. Today's guest is someone who lived multiple lives and made each one count. Today's guest is from the structured world of finance to the unpredictable of touring with a band and now operating at a high level in luxury real estate. Jonathan Stein didn't just pivot, he transformed. He's built a business that moves serious numbers, but what's more interesting is how he got there. Because behind the deals is the story of reinvention, discipline, and facing parts of yourself most people spend a life avoiding. This isn't just about real estate. This is about identity, control, temptation, and what it really takes to rebuild yourself on your own terms. Jonathan, welcome to Canvas.
Thanks, Monica. Pleasure to be here.
It's such a pleasure to have you as well. So, Jonathan, have you done a podcast before?
I have. I did my good friend and client Michael Chernow's podcast called Creatures of Habit, and it was a lot of fun. Maybe like 3 years ago. I loved it. Yeah, it was fun. He's very good at it, as are you.
Well, thank you. I met Michael a while ago when he first originally started. I think he partnered with Seymour's.
Yeah. It was one of his spots that he started.
Do they have any of them still open?
I think so. He's not really involved anymore. He lives upstate and has Creatures of Habit, which is like this amazing overnight oats, and it's just, the most handsome, healthy guy in the world. So
he's definitely had a transition in life for sure. He definitely has a story for without a doubt.
Yeah.
So you were just telling me earlier, like you remember when we first met, and I'm thinking about when I first met you when you just rolled up in your motorcycle and like tatted arms, and I was like, this guy's hot.
Thank you. Yeah, well, you showed a rental to me and my clients in the Seaport maybe like 8 years ago, and we just hit it off. It was just like from the first moment, I just was always so super connected to you.
That's so cool, because I was like, wow, I didn't remember that. But then again, I'm a little old, so my brain gets a little foggy sometimes. But that's interesting. I remember when you first came to Gramercy Square when I first started doing the project. It was probably like I think it was just before COVID. Yeah. I was like, he's so hot. I remember telling my wife, I was like, oh my God, I met this amazing broker. He's from Brown Harris. He just rolled up on this bike, and you reminded me of a very good friend of mine, Jason Sandlifer. Jason was actually my guest a couple episodes ago.
Nice.
And same thing, motorcycle, tall, 6'3", tatted up, and just really handsome and dynamic and personable. I mean, you know how I feel about you.
Same. I have the motorcycle in my apartment now.
Oh my God. You don't ride it anymore?
So I do. I've got a bunch of bikes, and I keep them at my place in Connecticut and ride on weekends because it's just a different city to ride in now. There's potholes everywhere. There's so much construction. Everyone's just kind of texting and driving, so it feels super dangerous. And I had a guy on my team came by to drop something off recently, and he walked in and he was like, this is the greatest bachelor pad of all time.
Was that Gavin?
No, it was Henry.
Oh.
And I was thinking about it, and I was like, what would make this an even better bachelor pad? Motorcycle in the living room. So I put it in the elevator, and I brought it in the service entrance and put it in the elevator. And my super came into my apartment to help me hang some art recently. And he walked in and he was like, is that real? I was like, yeah, I just kind of eyeballed it and put it in the elevator. Is that cool? He's like, I guess. Start it in here. So, yeah.
A friend of mine had a commercial space. They did all the Hudson News stores throughout the city, like all the NYC t-shirts and the Statue of Liberty trinkets and stuff. They had a commercial loft space here on the second floor on 15th and 5th. And it was a co-op space. And you'd walk in, and there was this beautifully bedazzled Vespa, a vintage Vespa.
Nice.
It was beautiful. It really was. So you'd walk in, and that's kind of like the first thing you see. I think one other client of mine had put a bike in his loft space. It's not that common, but
no, it's definitely a conversation starter when someone walks in.
it sure is. So anyways, getting started, you've had an interesting life. I knew a little bit about it, but I didn't know as much as we're going to get into this
Whatever you want.
conversation. Nothing off the table?
No, I mean, whatever you want.
All
I'm
right,
happy.
all right.
I like your style.
So some people know you went from finance to music to luxury real estate, completely 3 different worlds. They all kind of correlate to some degree. How did that happen? What were you searching for that you actually felt like, let me try this? No, let me try that. Or let me go to this.
I would love to say that I was being proactive with all of those changes, but it was more reactive than anything. So my resume in New York is like a patchwork quilt of non sequiturs that have all led me here. Like, it's just, I've done a lot of different things. My path, the meme, like, people think the path to success is a straight line, and it's really like the squiggly line.
It's a squiggly line.
I have a really squiggly line. So I got clean 12 years ago, and I tried for 4 years, before that. And I just wanted to see in those 4 years how much shittier I could make my life. And I was very successful with that. So I had a hodgepodge of different jobs, but, right before, for the term before I got clean, I was working in real estate private equity, raising capital, primarily from family offices for our fund. Before that, was raising capital for alternative assets, and was doing really well. Got sober. We raised a new fund. I was looking down in the field like 20 years in the future, thinking everything was going to be great. And it's that great quote, when you make plans, God laughs.
Yeah.
The fund imploded almost overnight.
Really?
It was sandbox issues with the principals. And
too many cooks in the kitchen.
Yeah, it was a lot. It was, and it was sad because the guy that brought me on and gave me a second chance after I had lost so many opportunities because of, drinking and drugs, really believed in me a lot. And he didn't have a fair shake of this, but I learned a lot from that experience. And when I learned that my position was dissolved and they were just fire sailing everything, I didn't really know what to do. I hadn't learned the life skills that I have now. Like, it's a real funny and very common saying in the sober community. Like, that day of school when we learned all the life skills, I was sick that day and I wasn't there to learn any of these life skills. So I was figuring out what I was going to do and how I was going to pay my rent. My brother and I were living together at the time in this place in Brooklyn, and we were going to buy the townhouse next door and renovate it, and ended up not being able to do that, obviously.
Sure.
I was on the phone. I was texting my best friend, Sarah, in LA, and she and I went to college together. She's more like a sister than a friend at this point. We've been friends for 25 years.
Wow.
And I was texting her at like 3:00 in the morning this one night, and I was like, I'm so fucked. Like, I don't know what to do. I don't have any money. Like, I put all our expenses for the fund on my personal card. Like, and I wasn't getting reimbursed. I was just totally smoked. And
so you never got any of the money back?
Never. So, and there's still things that pop up in the press about these guys from time to time that they're still figuring it out, but it's 12 years later. So I was texting with her, and it was 3:00 in the morning in New York. So it's like midnight in LA. And I'm texting Sarah, who's the lead singer of this band, Vantagram. I'm like, I don't know what to do. And I was just spiraling. She was like, I'll call you when I get home. Like, I'm out right now. And so she texted me like half hour later, and she was like, I was just at the party in the hills with Leonardo DiCaprio and all this. And I was like, you didn't have to leave. And she was like, no, I want to help you figure this out. Wow. She's like, we're about to go on tour all through Canada and the US and Mexico, and you should come with us. I was like, to do what? Like, to hang? I was like, I need a job. She's like, no, come out and like work as a tour manager, and like we'll pay you. I was like, I don't know how to be a tour manager. She's like, you worked in banking forever. Like, we've been friends for, at that point, like 11, 12 years. Come out on the road with us and do this job. And I was like, I don't, I got to find a real job. I got to stay here and figure it out. And she's like, well, you don't really have any options right now.
No.
So why don't you come out and
just a great friend to do
stop
that.
Being a impediment to your own development. Or she said something, she didn't say it like that, but
something along the lines.
She was like, why don't you just come out on the road with us and hang out and, figure it out. So I left New York and I went to first North Carolina, and we went from North Carolina to DC and Baltimore, and I grew up around there. So it was cool to have that experience on a tour bus and like, playing with a band and being with a band that had, sold out headline shows at every venue that we went to, like playing at the 930 Club where I grew up going to concerts was a really cool experience. And after that, I came back to New York. I was still trying to figure it out. I was looking at other, jobs at other funds.
How long were you on the tour for?
That was like a week. So it was very short. And then I came back and then their manager called and he was like, they're going out on a long tour, North American tour, Canada, US, Mexico, come on the road. They want you there. So I went on the road and we started in New York and we went all through Canada on the tour buses. That one was like 4 or 5 months. And then we were Canada, US, and then Mexico, and then back through the US again.
Wow.
And I was with them for like a year. And we were in Atlanta. They recorded an album with Big Boy from Outkast.
Mm-hmm.
So we were at Stankonia Studios in Atlanta for a while, living there. And then we were in LA for a bit and they did this cool music festival where Kendrick Lamar headlined and we got to hang out with him a lot while he was recording this album in Jimmy Iovine's studio.
Kendrick Lamar.
It was funny. I sold him an apartment 3 years ago and he walked in to the apartment for the first time and we kind of looked at each other he was just like, and I was like, man, we have so many photos together on my phone. You come up as one of my people. And he was like, yeah. And I was like, oh, he's Josh and Sarah's friend. And he's like, oh yeah. So it was really cool. And after that, I came back to New York and they were doing, a more substantial tour. And
did you learn how to be a tour manager?
Yeah, I did. I learned how to like babysit my two best friends and hang out with them. And I mean, it was more or less, I was just hanging out with my two friends while I figured out what was next. And they were very kind and generous and we had a lot of fun together. And
that's a beautiful thing.
It was, how often do you get to ride around on Nelly's old tour bus with your two best friends through, all of North America?
That is not a common action.
It was pretty awesome. And, it was an exercise in being newly sober and being on the road with a legitimate headlining rock band, which they made easier than I think it would have been otherwise, but it was still very difficult.
Sure.
But I learned a lot.
How long by the time you went?
It was like 4 months and it was very early.
Wow.
Yeah. So now when I think about that, I'm like, oh my God, like that could have gone either way. So I'm really grateful that I was able to hold it together.
I was going to say.
Yeah. But no, it was cool. We had a ton of junk food together on the tour bus and watched a ton of movies. So it was a lot of fun. And then I came back and I worked at another fund and didn't have any skin in the game and was relearning Excel macros from like, a while before. And a friend of mine suggested that I become a real estate agent. And it felt kind of like a dig at first, you should be a real estate agent. And I was kind of like, why would I want to do that? And she was like, well, you're good with people and, sales.
You have a great connection.
Yeah, I had awesome connections. And so I started doing it. And in the beginning, it was a lot of ego for me because I would sit down with friends that I was trying to turn into clients or get them to refer me people. And I would say, I'm a real estate agent now. And
what was the response?
A lot of the times guys would be like, man, like, I guess I can send your resume to my boss if you need help, like, do you, finding a real job. And I'm like, no, like, I want to do this. Like, it's interesting to me. Like, I like real estate. I like people. I like sales and I like connections. And most of those people turn into clients. So I'm really grateful for that.
I'm sure the ones that offered to send your resume to their bosses are now like, all right, dude.
Yeah.
You proved us wrong.
Yeah. And it took a long time to get to the point where they trusted me with their business. It took 2 years.
It does take
in
time.
The business. So
it's hard. And I have to say, it's working with friends in a professional capacity is a little tricky because you know how they are. You know their dynamic, what makes them tick, what sets them off, what doesn't, what makes them happy. So you have to somehow learn how to navigate. I mean, I've had to do it. You do it in being able to separate friendship from professionalism. And I've had this conversation already in the past, in one of the previous episodes. It's not an easy thing to do because someone's always going to get emotional.
Not everyone can do it.
No.
Either.
No.
I had a conversation with a really good friend of mine. I'm helping her and her husband buy something right now. And we were talking this morning uptown. And she asked me about, my experience working with other friends, because that's a lot of the clients that I have are friends or friends of friends or people that become friends. And sometimes it goes really smoothly, and it's a great situation for everyone involved. And sometimes people show you a side of them wish you could unsee.
Yes.
And it's sad, but I'm able to compartmentalize. It's just business, Everyone.
It's nothing personal.
It's nothing personal, but also it's all fear-based. Everyone, all bad behavior comes from a place of fear. Yeah. I'm afraid I'm not going to get what I want. I'm afraid someone's going to take advantage of me, be dishonest, get over on me. And it makes people act in different ways. So a lot of what we do is talking people off a ledge. And I mean, it's such a cliche saying
it's
to
hard.
be like,
it's hard to do that with a friend because they expect you to do what they want, what they're asking of you to do. They expect you to be loyal to, and you are being loyal to them. But what about when you are representing them for a sale? Okay. You're selling their place and they want you to it's got to be my way or the highway. Fuck the other broker. I don't care what they think. The buyer's got to pay this. The buyer's got to do that. And you have to try to navigate and make them feel like this. I understand where you're coming from because your fiduciary responsibility is to your client.
Sure.
And they expect you to throw that out the window and just be like, nope, you know what? It's me. But you have to kind of play both ways. That's why we have dual agency, especially if you're representing, let's say, the buyer on the other side. Okay. You have to do right by them, but you also have the obligation to your client.
It's like when you were a kid and you played chess against yourself, you always want one side to win more.
Exactly.
Right? And the original client, who your fiduciary is initially to them, most often than not, they're looking for you to, if you're wavering. But I've been blessed that most of the friends I've worked for, when we have to have difficult conversations, they appreciate the pushback. I sold a friend's apartment in the Village and we got a great offer on it, but it wasn't there. And he said, I'm not going to take this. And I said, you are. There's nothing else. We're going to take this because it's the best deal for you and for your family. And then you're out. And it doesn't matter anymore after that.
Because it's emotional.
It is.
Especially when you're dealing with friends. It's very, very emotional.
And when we closed, he was so grateful. He was like, yeah, I was so stressed about it. And you really handled that well. But also, people don't want us to be a pushover. I look at you in our friendship that we've had now for years and years.
Yep.
And I would never look at you and say, Monica's a pushover. I would say, Monica's like a badass chick that's going to, hit hard when she needs to and push back if I'm, kind of out of line. And your clients know that about you too. And they don't want you to be a pushover. They want you to push back when needed. And I've got this whole code of mine. And one of my criteria for myself is be honest, even when uncomfortable to do so.
Oh my God, I agree with you 100%. But that is very hard in what we do. And again, it goes back to your friend or your client. They either accept it or they don't. And when they don't, the fine line between friendship and professionalism goes out the door. And it's tough.
Yeah.
Especially when you're dealing with very, how should I say? I call them exposed nerves. People who
I like that a lot. That's good.
Their personalities is like an exposed nerve,
yeah.
And you just never know what's going to happen or when it's going to go.
Well, we work with a lot of the same kinds of people
yes.
too, very smart, very successful. Yep. People that are used to getting what they want because yep. they're right. I did a deal uptown 5 years ago with a very prominent CEO that I met through his son, and we get all the way almost to the finish line. He starts dragging his feet on this one item that was going to blow up the deal. And I called him and I yelled at him on the phone. I just completely lost my shit and I lost my cool. And I said, I've worked really hard on this deal and you're fucking it up, and stop it. You're going to lose this apartment. And it was 2021. So it was you waver it all and it's done.
2021 was a fire market.
It was insane.
It's if you didn't want it, the next person's going to take it. It was nonstop.
So I did what I had to do. And sure. He called me after we signed contracts and he goes, you are now a very trusted advisor for my family. And I really appreciate you doing that. He goes, no one's ever talked to me like that.
Yeah.
And in my
sometimes
professional
you
life.
have to. Sometimes it goes well. Sometimes it doesn't. I mean, you've been pretty fortunate. I've my wife definitely says, she's heard me on the phone sometimes. have fired clients. I'm like, I do not need to work with someone who doesn't value the experience, the expertise, the advice that myself and my team are giving you. That you sell stocks, it's not that different from us selling real estate. You know what you have to go through. You could totally understand what we're going through. And some clients are just either disrespectful or think they know it all and try to push you over. And you're absolutely right. I'm definitely not a pushover to a fault. Sometimes I've had to learn how to curb my temper.
Well, you have a strong personality and people are drawn to that. I've always been drawn to you for that reason because there's no bullshit in you. But also, like, when you push back on people and let them know how you deserve to be treated, you're telling the universe, don't send people like this my way anymore.
Yes.
I fired a client very early on. I was a big client that I did not have many of. And she would call me on Sunday night and yell, why haven't I, sold her apartment? And I got advice from another agent. She goes, fire her. And this is a very big agent. And I was like, yeah, but I don't have clients like you that are a dime a dozen that I can, do this with and cover that hole in my business. And she goes, it's your way of telling the universe, please don't send people like this my way again. And I did. And I'm thankful that I've not had that again.
Yeah, I think one of my most memorable fires, my wife remembers this, and a lot of people. I used to work with a lot of people in the music industry. I still do. And I got a call from Jay-Z's crew. They had this young producer that was up for a Grammy. He wanted to find something, and they wanted me to work with him. They pre-warned me. He's a little off the cuff, could be a little hot-headed, a little arrogant and pretentious and self-serving. And I said, okay, sure, whatever. I've dealt with a lot of them. So I go and meet with him. His mother comes, and it was Kanye West. I was like, nice to meet you, Mr. West. Heard a lot of nice things about you. Jay says great things about you. Biggs is like, very big, et cetera, and like all the people from Rock Nation. And I start taking him out. His mother, God bless her heart, Donda was amazing. And we go out, we're looking at things, and he is just being a fucking asshole. Not even just to me, but the team, the other brokers, the people that were involved, his own security, just his personality and temperament, the way he responded to people, the way he treated people, the way he demanded without any kind of kindness I was just like, and his mother kept apologizing, profusely apologizing for her son's actions. And it got to a point where I call up Biggs, because he was the one who I was dealing with. And I said, I'm sorry, I'm not working with anymore. You can try to find someone else. I'm not even going to recommend anybody else to work with him because he's absolutely appalling. He is, I don't even know how this man, he may be talented. He may be up for a Grammy. I don't care, but I don't want to work with him. I said, anyone else, I will do anything for you and Jay, but I am not going to work with this guy. So I'm done. And his mother was apologetic, please, like Monica. And I said, Donda, I absolutely respect you. I said, he is your son and you love him. He is your world. But at the end of the day, if he doesn't change his personality and his mentality towards people in life in general, he's going to have a very rude awakening one day. Needless to say, where are we today? And God rest her soul. She was such a wonderful woman. Yeah. And she tried with him. I know that he really went through a lot of ups and downs when his mother passed away. But at the end of the day, I don't wish him any ill at all. God gives you what you give out. Karma's a bitch.
It really is.
So being that you kind of landed into real estate and you had friends saying, oh my God, let me help you with something else. At the level where you are now, the performance that you have displayed, I know since you left Brown Harris coming to Element, which, how long have you been back now here?
3 years.
3 years?
3.5, yeah.
Okay. How much have you seen what you did in the beginning to where you are now, and what have you learned from this whole transition?
I really liked being at Brown Harris a lot, and Bess is still a really good friend.
I love Bess.
I sometimes when I'm in Midtown, I'll just go to the office and just take the elevator up because they still let me in the office, and I'll just walk in to her office.
Wait, they're on parking 40, parking 56.
Yeah.
57 between 57.
Yeah. So if her door's closed, I'll write a Post-it and just slide it under her door and just say hi. And we play tennis in the park every Wednesday morning.
Still.
Yeah. We play on opposite courts, but we always see each other and say hey. And they were really good to me. They helped me build a business early on when I didn't know what I was doing.
Is that the first company you started with?
I was at Town.
Oh.
I was at Town for 2 years, and I left a month to the day before they imploded. So I went over to BHS, and when I met Bess for the first time, I sat in her office and I said, I'm going to be one of your biggest agents. And she tells the story all the time. We did a podcast together and she talked about it, and I don't really remember it, but we had a really honest conversation. I was just really drawn to her, and I really respected her a lot. Her and
she's
Hull.
definitely. I love Hull. I had a short stint at Brown Harris, very short stint.
Yeah.
But Bess this is a long time ago. This was like 2007. I
Yeah.
don't think even Bess was that.
She was. I think she was at Corcoran.
Yeah.
So yeah. So I joined BHS. And I had an awesome career there. And, I started hitting like top 10 rankings like pretty early on after about a year. And when I left, I was ranked top 10 firm wide. And, I've got tats and ride a Ducati, and they didn't have another guy like me there. So
that everything was going great. And Bess, I have to say, if I would ever work with anybody, Pam would probably kill me if I said this, and so would, Michael at this point. But Bess is definitely someone who you absolutely respect. She is a force. She is a total force. She is badass.
I think she's one of the most impressive people I've ever met in my whole life. And she has...
Wow, that's a big statement.
She has the nicest, kindest disposition. And she can be very firm, but she's very fair too. And she doesn't take shit from anyone, no matter who they are. And I just always really respected that about her. And I never thought I would leave. But I was sitting in my car in February of 2022, and the number that you've had call you, I'm sure, a few times, rang that says, no name. And I answered, and a voice said, "Hey, Jonathan, it's Howard Lorber." And I was like, "Hey, Howard, I guess you're not calling me about a listing." He goes, "No, I'm definitely not." He goes, "I keep hearing your name all the time, and I think we should meet." And I said, "All right, I'd love to meet with you, but I just want you to know I'm really happy where I am." And he laughed, and he goes, "I was hoping you'd say that. I'll see you soon, buddy," and hung up. And I was like, that was cool. And it was on speakerphone in my car, and my guy, Manny, that's driven me now for 5 years. I was like, and he goes, I know who Howard is. Yeah, I know that name.
Everybody, if someone says, "Howard who?" Like, I'm sorry, what rock have you been living on?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I didn't hear from him for a while, and I thought he forgot about me. And then Gina, his assistant, reached out, and she goes, "Mr. Lorber has 30 minutes for you on this day." And I put on a suit and a tie. And I went and I sat in still probably the most impressive office I've ever been in New York. And he didn't bring up real estate once.
That's what I love about Howard. I have to tell you, every time, and I think we had a really good dynamic, Howard and I, for so many years. Yeah. But what I loved about Howard is you could sit and talk to him, and real estate would not come up once. You could talk about everything, life, love, art, music, boats, anything, and not have to talk about real estate. It was one of the most refreshing things that you can encounter and experience with someone like Howard.
Well, not knowing anything about him the first time we sat together, I kept waiting for him to say, "So when are you coming over? When do you move over to Element?" And he never said it once. That 30 minutes that we had turned into an hour and a half. We talked about, where I grew up, where he grew up, and, how he was involved in starting the Silver Shield Foundation for family members of police officers who were killed in the line of duty. We talked about his philanthropy. We talked about shooting. We both love, doing pheasant and quail and wing shooting. And I had never really talked with someone of his stature in that setting before about,
something so personal.
Yeah, exactly. And we just had such a nice conversation. And I was the one that had to say, "Hey, I have to go show a client. Like, it's with real regret I stopped." He goes, "All right, well, let's talk again." And we didn't talk again for a while. And then I landed in Miami a couple months later for F1. It was the first one in Miami. And I remember I was still sitting on the plane after we landed, and I had a text that said, "A little birdie told me you just landed in Miami. Let's meet for breakfast." And he said, "It's Howard, by the way," in parentheses. And I said, "All right, like, you pick the spot. I want to go where you go for breakfast." So we sat at the Setai the next morning for like 2 hours and just caught up again. And it was the first time.
Howard. I miss him so much.
Yeah.
I know you just saw him.
I did. He said hi. I told him I was doing the podcast. But it was the first time that he saw me without shirt sleeves on, because I showed up in a polo, and I was like, you know what? Like, I'm going to get this out of the way. And I did. I showed up in a polo shirt, and he goes, "Fuck, you have a lot of tattoos." It was great. And I didn't feel like he was judgy at all. Like, he didn't care. He goes, "I don't care. A lot of my people have tattoos." And we just had this awesome breakfast together where we talked, and he has become for me, and I told Michael this a lot, like, I feel like a lot of people think of Howard as a father figure, and he's
a lot
not.
of people do.
Howard is Michael and Brian's dad.
Yeah.
And Michael is a very close friend of mine, and he's one of my best friends in the industry. And I think he does it better than pretty much anyone because he navigates
He's also had an amazing mentor, his dad.
But his dad, everyone thinks that Howard just feeds Michael all these clients.
No.
And
I've always known that was never the case.
Michael just meets these people and navigates the relationship in just such an expert way. I really like working with their team a lot. We've done a few deals together, and I really consider them to be very close friends. And I don't think of Howard as my dad. I think of everything I wanted my dad to be is what Howard is. But I just love my time with him. And it was one of the proudest accomplishments of my life working for him.
Yeah. I have to say, I feel the same way. I don't look at Howard as a father figure. I've always looked at him as an equal, though it's very different, but he comes to you like an equal. He doesn't come to you as like, I'm Howard Lauber.
When he introduces me to people as his friend, it's like, it's the best thing in the world. And I've gotten very lucky that we've gotten to spend a lot of time together over the years. And I miss working with him.
I do.
But I mean, he still answers my call first ring.
You need
every
advice?
Time.
You're like, Howard, got a minute to chat?
Yeah.
Sure.
And he knows I'm a crazy F1 fan. And so he got Element to sponsor the race, and we go together every year. Yeah. And it's like one of my favorite times of the year watching F1 with Howard and just yelling at the track, watching it on the TV from the box that we sit at.
I'll go next year to Miami. I haven't been to the one in Miami in a while.
It's crazy that you haven't come.
I was asked to go this year, and I just could not fit it in my schedule. It was just impossible to do.
Sunday's a very small crowd, and you would be very welcome.
Yeah. I've done Vegas, I've done Italy, I've done a few others.
It's the best. So, I got to hang with him, and then I get to hang with Michael Leibowitz when I was down there as well, who is our new chairman.
Yes.
And is just awesome. He's just...
I haven't talked about Michael a lot on the podcast. I will eventually, hopefully have him on. But he and I can talk, and we talk. It's like Howard, not real estate. It's about life.
He's just a good dude.
I love
it. I like talking to Michael about and seeing the world through his eyes because I know what he's built and how successful he is.
And where he started. 100%.
Which is great. And it makes me feel, because I did not come from this world at all. And I fight every day to be here. And we've talked a lot about that. And he really cares about our company.
Yeah.
And I care about our company too. I really do. The Element name means something.
Listen, I think everybody knows by now that I've always been a big advocate and spokesperson.
I can't imagine you anywhere else.
Every change this company has gone through, and I shouldn't because I'm just a broker in this company, but it emotionally affects me. And I just feel like we know change is good. We know things have to evolve, and that's perfectly fine. But like when Howard's leaving, Scott leaving, and there's been just a lot of back of the house changes. You think about like what's happened to our company. Where's the soul? Like it was very different before Michael came. Like this was like a close-knit family. We had a camaraderie that no other company could ever match. And a lot of that went away a little bit. It has. It's now a little bit more.
Well, we've lost some people that were kind of on the fence anyways. Yeah. And, we're rebuilding. That's what it feels like to me. It feels
that's what I like about Michael, because he is, I definitely think he and I have a lot of certain mindsets, both being Sagittarius, but the fact of where he came from, how he's built his life, his business, his career, how he views things in a very different perspective, not as a typical CEO chairman of a real estate company. And that I respect and that I admire. It's like I always say, I'm like, Michael, you're scrappy. You started out as like this scrappy guy, and you're still scrappy. You're just more refined. But I have a great admiration and respect for him for what he's doing. And I know that this company is going to continue to build and grow and be the number one firm again in New York. We definitely hold the number one. We hold the number one place in luxury throughout most of the country. Boston, New York, Miami,
Florida with Jay Parker. Yeah. Shout out to Jay Parker.
Yeah.
It's my guy,
is really,
my brother.
I think it's a true testament that when people come to us, it really is about luxury.
Yeah.
We are that luxury brand. But let's go back a little bit about where you're from. Let's go a little personal, family and stuff. I mean, I know you have a brother. You have two brothers?
Just one.
Just one brother.
Yeah.
Give me a little bit about your backstory.
I grew up on a farm in Maryland in a town of 170 people, and I had never met anyone that lived in New York. I always wanted to be here. I always dreamed about being a city kid. When I was a kid, my best friend David was a 45-minute walk through the woods if I wanted to go to his house. He lived on another farm far away.
Wow.
And we had pigs and we had beef steers, and I grew up in a very small town. So
Wow.
I didn't know how I was ever going to make it to New York, but I knew I was going to figure it out. And I did. I figured it out. I came here and I knew two people somewhat well, and I've been here ever since, and I love it. And yeah, it was a very different way to grow up.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
So what I'm going to ask, you've always been very outspoken about your sobriety. We just talked about it briefly.
Mm-hmm.
It's not an easy thing to do. Some people have a hard time speaking about like their past demons and being in a high performing career that you are now, let's say from when you started in finance to music to real estate. What drove you to that? First question. How did that control your life? Because it does. It eventually, addiction, it consumes you. And how did it force you to confront how much control you never had?
That's a really good question. I have debilitating OCD. And drinking and being high was the only time I was able to relinquish that kind of control and just feel like at ease in my own, skin. I felt like I never fit in anywhere. When I came to New York, I wasn't dishonest about where I came from, but I wasn't forthcoming with details because I didn't feel like I fit in here. And now, to me, having told my story in its entirety so many times with clients and friends, I think it's an interesting story. I'm grateful that I didn't go to the, best prep school. I didn't go to the best college. Like, I figured it out and came here and made it and continue to work hard to stay here every day and try and, leave my days a little better than I found them. And I definitely do not do that perfectly. And I mess up a lot, particularly pre-sobriety, and I still make mistakes now, and I try to atone for that and make amends. But I'm very cognizant that I'm able to be here, and I'm playing in extra innings on borrowed time right now. And
how bad did it get?
It was bad at the end. And I hear a lot of people in sobriety say, oh, I should be dead. I should have died years. I can't believe I'm here right now. Like, if I was meant to be dead, I would have been dead a long time ago. And I feel like I have two purposes in the world why I was spared that, premature death. I feel like I'm here to help people get sober that are struggling and don't know who to ask for help. And I'm outspoken about my sobriety because of that. And I'm very blessed that I get a lot of people that reach out pretty consistently, sometimes every week, that need help through friends of friends that don't know what they're doing. And I get to be for them the guy that I needed when I was in their shoes and didn't know who to turn to and was scared. And
so you sponsor a lot of...
Oh, I do a lot of.
So go to meetings every day?
Mm-hmm. Not every day. I hit a few a week, and the program is it's its own conversation, but it's helped me, and that is what I'm grateful for. And the other reason that I feel I have purpose is to be there for the family members of people who I've loved and lost, and be there, kind of light along the way. And I've been really blessed to be in the orbit of a lot of people who were not meant to be here for very long. And I have a lot of moms that I text on Mother's Day. So I'm very grateful for that.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
It's addiction it's a dreadful thing. I've had friends who've battled addiction terribly, and some are here, some are not, as I'm sure you know.
Yeah.
And it is a very difficult, it's a very difficult demon to overcome. It really is.
It's something that, I had 12 years last month of continuous sobriety. Thank you. And, I struggled for 4 years before that, and I perpetually counted days and tried to get clean and sober time and was not able to, just ring the bell and tap out. And it gets easier over time and it gets better. And my dream life that I imagined when I was in early sobriety and early in real estate pales in comparison to the life that I have today. I wasn't even able to dream this big. I had this idea of this life that I wanted, and my life today is so amazing, and I'm so blessed that I'm able to do the things that I am and have the people in my orbit that I am. And yeah, I feel really lucky. So
It really is beautiful, Jonathan. And I always say there are people in this life that go through so many challenges and adversities and trials and tribulations, and they don't have the support or the love and the family or the friends that are there. Sometimes it gets to the point where you go to a level with your addiction that people throw their hands up and say, I'm done. Like, I can't do this anymore. I mean, you see so many people today, mental illness has an effect with addiction. There's just a lot. But putting those two together, it's difficult, but I'm sure it was hard for your family. I'm sure it was hard for the people that loved you.
I didn't have any support from my family when I got clean. I did it the best way that I could. I figured it out, and I found people to help me here in sobriety, and it was tough. I had my little brother was my just North Star, and he was very helpful. But I did it for him in the beginning because I didn't think I deserved to do it for myself, and that changed over time. And he has always been very supportive of my sober journey. But I went on a date with a girl early on in New York, and she was like, "Did you grow up in Tribeca?" And I was like, "What do you mean?" And she goes, "Yeah, you just feel like someone that grew up downtown. You're cool." And I was like, I did not grow up in Tribeca.
Yeah.
I did not grow up in this world. And it was like the greatest compliment I had ever received. So yeah, I've lost a lot of friends along the way, both that I grew up with and in New York. And I don't want to be a cautionary tale. I want to be the example that I want to see, and I want to help people have a better life because it is always worth it.
The friends that you've lost, do you feel that being sober now, are you able to make amends with them? Are they willing to hear you make amends?
The ones from early on, I've made amends to most of those people. And, I have amends to people that I've heard in sobriety too, which is an even more difficult pill to swallow because it's like, you should be better now. You should not be doing the same bullshit as before. But we're all flawed people, and I can beat myself up about it as much as possible. But I just try to be better than the guy I was yesterday. And sometimes it's easier, sometimes it's not. But yeah, the ones that I've lost along the way that have passed either from overdose or other causes surrounding that, I keep them in my heart always, and we carry them with us.
It's always a remembrance.
Yeah.
It's a reminder.
But it's also some of them kept me sober with that, and their death doesn't have to be in vain. But it is difficult.
It is.
Yeah.
Oh, so, I think
every day is a gift.
Every day is a gift. I always say, thank God, or whatever you believe in, whatever higher power. I just wake up, open my eyes, put my feet down, and I can just have another day.
But it's so much more interesting thinking about there being something up there watching out for us or some kind of presence or energy. So going back to Michael Chernow again, he and I, during the pandemic, every morning would FaceTime one another. He has a place in upstate New York. I have a place in the country in Connecticut. And we would FaceTime every morning for months and months, almost a year during the pandemic. And we would do Wim Hof breathing together.
Oh my God.
And then he would go jump in his pond there, and I would go jump in mine, or a cold shower, and we would do the plunge. And we had all of these amazing, really deep conversations. And I remember I was having this real crisis of faith early on because I lost my entire slate of deals in 6 weeks. I just bought a house. I just got married. I didn't have any business coming in, and I didn't know what I was going to do. And I was having this kind of faith crisis. And I was talking to Michael in one of our morning calls, and I was like, what do you believe? What's your higher power? And he goes, man, I've given this so much thought. I don't know what's out there. I know it's not me. And I look out the window like I do right now, and I see the leaves blowing in the breeze, and I can't do that. And that's what God is to me. And I thought it was the most insightful thing I've ever heard.
Really
and
insightful.
I do it every day. I live on Gramercy Park, and I do laps in the park in the morning, and I see the breeze blowing the leaves every morning. I'm like, man, that's something that I can't do. It's not me. It's something greater than me.
It's very true.
Yeah.
So speaking about marriage, so you got married.
I did.
When did you and Lena get married? How long ago?
2019, right before the pandemic.
Okay.
So we got married and we are now divorced.
Yeah, I kind of knew there was a process that was happening, but I think it's gone public now.
Yeah, it was in People magazine today.
I mean, she did post it on Instagram, which
Yeah.
I was a little surprised, but I was like, okay, I thought this was...
Yeah,
But you guys had a great relationship. You guys are still friends.
she's like my best friend. And we share the 2 dogs together, and we live in the same building still.
Oh,
And-
that's a true testament.
Yeah, and I
I mean,
I can't be that bad, right?
You cannot be. Most ex-wives or ex-husbands want to run from their former spouses. Well, clearly you're not an asshole, and she still loves you. That you guys still live in the same building.
I was an asshole. I was not perfect, and
No one is.
yeah, and that's kind of the thing. But we have a very nice relationship today, and I'm very grateful for that. So yeah, we get to co-parent the dogs together, and
Great Danes.
2 Great Danes.
That's a very specific breed that the both of you would agree to get. I mean, Great Danes are like, they're gentle, docile
They're the
giants.
laziest creatures you could ever. They're the best apartment dogs ever.
They don't have a very long lifespan.
No.
They're giant.
Getting them to walk a lap around Gramercy Park is a real issue because they pull back. They just want to go home and sleep on the couch. In Connecticut, though, their personality changes and they rip around all day together like crazy people.
Right.
Yeah, they're the best.
They're beautiful.
They are, I've never loved something in my whole life as much as I love those dogs. And particularly Deanie, the older one that I have, and Lena has Dagny, the puppy that we rescued. Deanie and I just like...
You're her person.
Yeah, it's awesome.
You're her person.
We just hang and she calms me down and we just spend so much time. Like, I love her so much.
You can't see yourself without coming home and having this creature come to you and show you this unconditional love.
I've told my operations manager, Tegan, when that day comes, that's a minimum. Like, you're not going to see me for a few months.
Yeah,
So.
I always say that I have a 16-year-old Jack Russell and a 3-year-old Golden Doodle, which most people you've met Rowie. Rowie came into my life very oddly, the story behind it. And I'll tell you the story because it's a very interesting one. But pre-Rowie, I had Roxy. So we had 2 Jack Russell Terriers, go figure. A lot of energy, both females. But Roxy was my everything. I was her person. She was my... I always felt that if a dog could be your soulmate, Roxy was my soulmate, 100%. Even when Roxy passed, I mean, she got sick, she got diagnosed with Cushing's, and I searched the country for a surgeon who could perform an adrenalectomy, which is not a common surgery for dogs, especially small dogs, because essentially they're cutting you from your sternum all the way down to your abdomen. And for a small dog, that's kind of like butterflying a dog open. Big dog, a little bit easier. Crazy. So I found this surgeon.
Sounds inexpensive.
Oh, yeah. I could have bought a Porsche. But she came through the surgery. Everything was fine. For some reason, she developed a giant blood clot in her aorta. So there was nothing we could do.
Yeah.
I mean, it is what it is. I was devastated. Because otherwise she was perfectly healthy. She passes. I tell my wife, I'm like, okay, we have tests and we're sticking with tests. We're going to leave it at that. And she's like, okay, fine. I fast forward, meet these guys as clients, and they have these doodles, and they live in Vegas. And one of the doodles, Dee Dee, beautiful dog. Like, this dog just gravitated to me, and there was just some kind of connection with this dog. Fell in love with her. And I was like, I would never. I've always been Jack Russells or Schnauzers, small little scrappy dogs. And he tells me, well, I got them at Kathy's Doodles and Poodles in Vegas. And I'm like, okay. So I start following Kathy's Doodles and Poodles. And I started getting a little more and more I like these dogs. Great personality, very gentle, but excitable. And my wife's like, we're not buying another dog. We're not buying another dog. That's not happening. If we ever get another dog, we're going to rescue. I said, okay, great. So Terry and Sean, those were his dogs with his husband, Michael, they are sending me stuff. And I'm looking, I sign up with these doodle rescues, on the East Coast, on the West Coast. And I applied without telling my wife to 4 different doodle puppies, older, a year old, 2 years, newborn puppies, everything. And I didn't get them. I'm like, how the hell do you get denied?
Such an ego blow.
Wait, I'm like, really? What the fuck?
Yeah.
I have a easy schedule. I have a big apartment in Dumbo. I have a house on 2 acres that's completely closed off in the Hamptons. I mean, they travel with us. They go everywhere. You couldn't have given a dog a better person to like have them and raise them. So yes, ego blow. So I was like, fuck this shit. I'm sitting at dinner. It was around my wife's birthday. It's a bunch of us having dinner. And I don't have notifications on my phone for anything except for my emails or news. I get this notification from Instagram, Kathy's Doodles and Poodles. And I'm like, and I see this puppy sitting on a bench and I'm like, oh my God, this dog is beautiful. So I show it to Terry's daughter. I'm like, Gabby, what do you think? She's like, oh my God, she's great. Like, you got to get her. And I'm like, oh, whatever. So I'm like, okay. I text Kathy. She's in Vegas. I'm in New York. Time difference worked fine. And she tells me she's the last female, smallest one of the litter that she had. And I'm like, I'll take her. And my wife's like, are you out of your fucking mind? And I'm like, and you've met Stacy. She's like, are you crazy? She's
I wouldn't be on her bad side.
She's like,
she likes me.
She's like, it's on you. I want nothing to do with the dog. I don't want any, it's your responsibility. Yep. I said, I'm fine. I will take full responsibility of the dog. I will take care of it. I had a nanny fly her to New York. Like, I was going to fly to Vegas and pick her up. And Kathy's like, I have a nanny. Like, we have an arrangement with the flights and get her over. Great. Now, pause that thought. A year prior to that, I'm very, like, I'm a social, kind, loving person, but I'm not a very emotional at heart type of person.
No.
My kids will tell you that. My family will tell you that. But I, one night, woke up in the middle of the night and I was bawling, crying, like just crying. And it was because I had this dream with Roxy. And in the dream, she is telling me in her own way to open up my heart, to like just, I had so much love to give to another animal. Do not shut myself down to it. And this is what and I remember this vividly. This is now 4 years later. Because Roey's 3. I'm like, my wife's like, what's wrong? I said, I just had a dream with Roxy, and that was it. But during that dream, there was a little word floating. Like, you know, like there's always something in the background.
Thought bubble.
Yeah, there's something back there, and there's this word. And it always stayed with me. So at one point, I was like, wow, if I ever have a dog, I'm going to name this dog that word. Great. So fast forward. This dog is now coming. We're picking her up at JFK, July 20th. We're about to go, and I tell my wife one morning, I'm like, I know exactly what I'm going to name the puppy. She goes, what? My mother-in-law was with us. This was during the summer. She goes, what? I said, I'm going to name her Roey. My wife looks at me, and I just see tears welling up in her face, and I'm like, what's wrong with you?
You're like, it's not that bad.
And I'm like, come on, right? And she goes, you tell mom, her mom, what you're going to name the puppy. And I said, okay. So I'm like, hey, Mom, come here. You know, like, I know what I'm going to name the puppy. She goes, what are you going to name the puppy? I said, I'm going to name her Roey. She goes, oh, my God. That's what my Gilly used to call me. I guess Roxy met Gilly. Gil was my wife's father, my mother-in-law's husband, who passed away 10 years before I got together with my wife. I never would have known that that was the nickname that my father-in-law said to my mother-in-law at all. So in my heart, Roxy put Roey in my life. It's crazy.
I'm not going to do it.
I'm trying not to do it.
I'm not going to do it.
And every time, and I don't tell that story often, and every time I say it, my wife literally has to turn away because she starts crying.
Yeah.
I would have never known.
We don't deserve dogs.
But they are in our lives for a reason. And when they leave us, there's always a part of them that will be with us. And I look at Roey and I'm like, Roxy, are you in there? I'm like, yes, it's mind-blowing. And this dog is an exceptional dog. Like everybody has said, I mean, even like John, because Dee Dee, the dog that I fell in love with, that was his, and Roey are sisters, same father, which was another really weird thing, that Dee Dee came into my life and made me feel like I could love another dog, and a doodle for that matter. And it's a crazy story.
I've never had a pet that people will come up to you unsolicited on the street and say, "Oh, is she a Great Dane?" I'm like, "Yeah, she's the best." And then they go, "Yeah, they don't live long." And I always want to be like, "Yeah, I didn't know that, asshole. Thanks. Yeah, thanks for." I was a client once. I met her dad at a wedding, and he came up to me and he goes, "You're the Great Dane guy." I was like, "Yeah." He goes, "Yeah, they don't live very long, do they?" I was like, "Oh, they don't know." No, but she just turned 6 last week, and so now, like more than ever, every day with her is a gift. Because they I'd be really happy with 10.
Now?
6.
Wow.
Yeah.
But she's good.
She was a COVID puppy, and she and I got to spend every day together during COVID. I got her in June of that year. Lena, I always wanted a dog, and out of left field, I started talking about Great Danes, and she was like, "Where did this come from?" And I was like, "Well, I've always wanted a Great Dane, and no, finally we did research, and she found out how lazy they were, and she's like, "Okay." Yeah, she was like, "You can buy yourself one for your birthday." And so I did. I found her in Pennsylvania, and we went and grabbed her, and rest is history. She's the best.
She's the best.
Yeah.
We have to get her and Rowie in here more often so Rowie can get her to play and
Definitely.
move around.
She comes to work all the time with me and
I
sleeps
know.
under the desk.
I try to bring Rowie as much as I can. I mean, she tends to go everywhere with me.
Yeah.
But she's very attached. They have she doesn't have separation anxiety, but she definitely is looks at me like, "Mommy, where are you going?"
Yep.
Meanwhile, Tess could care less.
Yeah.
Tess is like, "Bye. I really don't care anymore." But anyways, let's jump back into something a little bit more exciting. So if we sit down again in 5 years, which I'm sure it's going to be before that.
Yeah.
What would have happened? Not just your business, but internally, for you to feel like you've done something, that you've achieved something you never thought you would.
I did not think I was going to be alive at this point. So truly, every day I view as a gift. If I'm still sober in 5 years, and I plan to be, that will be a huge win. And how many people I've been able to help figure this out, that's a win for me. I'm really involved in a charity that I'm on the associate board of called Headstrong Foundation, and it's paid mental health services for military vets, particularly special forces operators. And a lot of the guys that I grew up with joined the military because college, for many was not an option.
Sure.
So I've had 3 friends that I grew up with killed in Iraq and Afghanistan. And one of my best childhood friends now is serving as lieutenant colonel in the Air Force, as a, co-head of the Strike Eagles for the F-15s in the Middle East. And I'm so proud of him. And I worry all the time. we had a phone call the other day. I was so emotional at the end of it because we hadn't talked in months because of everything that's going on. And I was just like, man, I'm so grateful we were able to catch up and chat today. Do you think we can talk again? And he kind of laughed. He goes, "We send memes back and forth on Instagram all fucking day. You can call me, I'm walking around with my iPhone. You can call me whenever." So we've talked a lot more, and it's been great. But I'm involved in that, and I'm the chairman of the FDNY Foundation board, which is a foundation that was set up to aid, we did a lot for the family members of those killed on 9/11, the 343 firefighters and EMTs that were, killed on September 11th. And then a lot of the first responders, firefighters, EMS that have succumbed to 9/11 related illnesses over the years. And it's many more than that. So those 2 things are kind of my babies, but, a passion project that I really want to work on, that when we were in Palm Beach for Aspire a couple years ago, we had this motivational speaker, you'll remember, and he said, "Close your eyes. If money," he's like, "everyone in this room is wildly successful. If money was not the focus anymore, if you had enough to live, what would you do?" And immediately it came to me. Great Danes, dogs in general, but specifically Great Danes, are expensive. Mm-hmm. And the older they get, the more health problems they have. And so many people that own Great Danes abandon them at their vets when they get old and expensive. So I've got a big barn in Connecticut that when Lena and I bought the house, we were like, we're going to turn this into the party barn, or it's going to be a 14-car garage. We had all these plans spec'd out for it. Now I'm going to start something called Deanie's Dane, and I just want to have a senior Great Dane rescue, and I want to spend the rest of my life caring for these noble creatures that people just can't do anymore.
I love you. I love you. That is such an amazing, beautiful, selfless thing to want to do. And
it's all I think about when I'm there. And I think about how many thousands of dollars it's going to cost me a day to feed these huge creatures. So and honestly, it may sound silly. It motivates the hell out of me to like work harder. Cause I really want to do that. That's when you're never going to retire. I'm never going to retire. We're always going to do this. We're always going to do something that feeds us.
So, sure.
But I really want, my twilight years to be spent just surrounded by Great Danes in Connecticut on my property.
It's so funny you say that because I mean, 2 acres is not enough, but I've always said to Stacey, I said I'd be happy to like sell everything that we have for a simple life and just be comfortable and have a farm, whether it's on the North Fork.
You'd make it a week.
Before the North Fork, you'd make it a week.
But you couldn't. You'd be so... I used to have a friend that I got sober with who would say, man, I just want to give this up and move to Montana and work at Home Depot and go, out in the mountain with my dogs, go camping on weekends. Don't you think that's great? I'm like, man, I'd be so fucking bored right away. Like I need to be doing stuff all the time. Like That's one thing I love about our business is my phone's just going off all the time. I'm busy. There's always a million things to do.
Well, and we're you and I absolutely are adrenaline junkies.
Yeah.
So that's definitely an addiction that is hard for me to give up. But I do agree. Listen, I probably wouldn't last a week on a farm. I'd probably last a little longer than a week.
But you'd find something like I'm talking about to fill your time and to feed your soul.
Correct.
And it would consume you. And it would just be magnificent.
I want like a ton of animals. I want a yard donkey. I want some goats. I want some little pigs.
Yeah.
And
you're going to have them all.
Like I want all that. But I would do it in Italy. I mean, I would love to retire in Italy. That's kind of been
buy some for like $100,000 and renovate it and
beat up.
Well, they have those, massive estates that are falling apart that they just want foreigners to come in and buy.
Yeah.
You could do that.
I know, we looked into it.
Yeah, I have to.
Let's do one together.
Yeah, done.
Oh my God, can you imagine?
I had a friend that we used to talk about doing a retirement castle and buying one of those with a group of friends, and like everyone puts in like CapEx to bring it up to current standards, and then it's run like a hotel, but just for you and your friends.
Yeah, well, I'm all for that.
Yeah.
Oh, all right. Well, Jonathan, what makes this conversation compelling isn't just the success. It's the honesty behind it. Because the reality is, reinvention sounds glamorous until you're the one doing the work. And what you've shown is that growth isn't just about building something outwardly impressive. It's about having the awareness to look inward, make changes, and keep evolving. Thank you for going there with me today. And to everyone listening, this is Canvas with Nova Collective, where we don't just talk about what people do. We get into who they had to become to do it. Until next time.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for spending time with us on Canvas. Don't forget to subscribe, download, and follow the podcast on all platforms so you don't miss what's coming up next. We'll be back with a new conversation and a fresh perspective.